Jazmin, welcome to the Retail Whore podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Okay, I feel like I've known you forever because we've already gone back and forth a bit. And then I just focused on your TikTok the other day, and I'm like so happy to see you here, but I literally feel like I know you. That's the Instagram.
You literally have like the job of my dreams that I never knew existed. If that makes sense.
Your store is pretty amazing. So a little backstory is we had met through Instagram. You asked me a couple questions about your store. You have the most beautiful space. Where is your store?
So my store is located in Victoria, Texas. And I actually recently, like in September, changed the locations.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, because back in September, my lease was going to come up October 1st, and they were selling the building. They offered me the building to buy first, but obviously I only had a year in retail. And it was going to be like over $800,000 the purchase price, I'm like, whoa, like that's very scary for me. Like, I don't know. And of course, my parents, just given our history, they were like, we're going to help you. My parents are very much like one of my biggest supporters on top of like my husband and my kids and stuff. And they're like, we're going to make this possible for you. We'll try it. But when we were going back and forth to the bank, I was like, oh my God, that's a lot of money. And it started scaring me.
Yeah.
Especially with the way the economy is right now. It was just a lot of money. And I didn't want to put my parents into that predicament. Like, even though they told me, we'll help you out. It doesn't matter. It was so scary for me. And I'll tell, you'll understand why later when I tell you about our history. So anyways, then there was a new owner. I told him, no, I won't be able to buy this. It's too much. So there was a new owner that was going to be coming in, and he wanted to change my lease to a triple net lease.
Oh, God.
So that was going to increase. I did the calculation because I ended up calling because it was going to include rent, property taxes, utilities, of course, maintenance, and building insurance. Not only my merchandise, the liability insurance I would buy, but building insurance.
Ugh.
So that was going to be another $600 a month. I'm like, that's already on top of the very significant amount of rent that I'm paying as a brand new boutique. Like I'm like, that's my part-time employee. Yeah. Like I'll lose my sanity because now I'm going to have to do it on my own. So I ended up, telling him I'm going to go elsewhere, even though that particular area where my store was located was right on the corner. Our downtown area is very up and coming and has been very dormant for over 10 years.
Wow.
Unless you had to come see an attorney or your accountant or had to come and do something with the courts, like the renew your registration, birth certificate stuff, there was no reason for you to come downtown, even though we have such a beautiful plaza in our downtown area. But they recently, in the last 3-4 years, it has really come back to life.
It's nice.
So I was very scared because I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I've only been open a year. I found a space and it was right in front of the plaza, like the main plaza in our store. So I moved, but the building I'm in had been vacant for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So the walls were, like an avocado green.
Awesome.
You're like, I don't even know how to explain.
You're back now.
Yeah, because now I'm coming back. But no, but it wasn't a pretty avocado green. They were like I don't even know how to explain it. I call it a caca green. That's literally what I call it. And like a sky blue. And the floors were like a cherry dark red years ago. I know, great color combo, right? Years ago, it used to be an old jewelry store. So the layout was kind of weird, but the landlord, she was a really good customer of mine. And I used to be a nurse and her husband was a doctor that I used to work with. And she's like, I thought about it, but, we never wanted to do retail, but, I know you. My husband knows you very well. You know what? Let's do it. And
wow.
Within a month, we transformed the space. She paid for the renovations.
Wow. Okay. I love her already.
I love her. Like, she has also been one of the biggest cheerleaders in my, that I have found. They paid for all the renovations, the painting, the stripping of the floors to make them this beautiful, just neutral. I don't even know how to explain it. It's like a washed white. I don't know. It's a beautiful color. and they're going to end up redoing the storefront eventually to just give me like retail windows, top to bottom. And she even redid my branding because she does, she has a PR and marketing firm. And she's like, Jazmin, I want your branding to seem more cohesive. And she gave me a whole branding kit.
Wow.
It's
easy.
She redid my logo. She has been amazing. Like,
oh my God.
When it comes to my branding part of my business.
Oh my God. So now that we got this deep in, introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about your store and yourself.
Okay. So I know you asked me one question.
I know. I realized that. I was sitting here and I'm like, I wonder, that's part of the beauty of this is that I wanted people will hear this part of the story and then, then you'll go into it. So there's no, like I said, there's no rhyme or reason. There's no pre-questions. It's just where the conversation takes us.
Okay. And I'll preface this by saying I have ADHD. So sometimes I tend to go off on
girl, so do I.
tangents. But my name's Jazmin Montalvo. I am 40 years old. I have been a nurse since I was 22 years old.
Wow.
I graduated my bachelor's degree in 2006. And in 2021, I graduated with my master's degree in nursing.
Wow.
So August 2021, I graduated with my master's degree in nursing. And then in October 2021, I decided to quit my career because I wasn't happy anymore. My husband, he's like, something's going on. You're not the same anymore. Because I worked in the COVID floor, basically, and that drained me. And for the longest, I used to be an OR nurse. I worked in ER. I worked in PD oncology, and these very hard positions in nursing, but they didn't affect my mental health as much as COVID did.
Wow.
So luckily, my husband has a very good job that he told me, take the time, take the space, figure out what you want to do, what makes you happy. And I took a step back from nursing. I'm still keeping my nursing license, I guess, alive. And opening a boutique was always a fever dream. It was something that I was like, oh, it would be nice. Like, I would love to do it because I'm a plus size girl. And it was very hard for me to find cute, trendy clothing in my size. And anytime I would find clothing, it's like they wanted to dress me in these, I don't know, turtlenecks and serape and just leopard and Disney characters.
Yeah, the animal print, I was buying for Burt's Pharmacy and we kept getting requests for plus size. So when you go out and find it, it's either total hoochie wear, which, wow, or it's like animal prints and it's like oversized and it's like, I totally understand that dilemma.
Yeah, nothing trendy. Like, I don't get me wrong. I love animal print. Like, I love a good zebra kind of midi skirt with a cute T-shirt. But there wasn't anything that the stores around me were carrying that were like that. And if they were, they didn't fit correctly because they didn't have a plus size woman buying their clothes to understand that, no, I want to buy a dress, but I don't want the cut to hit me right here. So I knew that was something I always wanted to do. But, growing up, I'm an 80s baby. I grew up in 1983. There really wasn't any plus size options either. I remember I told my daughter now, going to prom was the most mentally taxing and draining moments of my life because I could never find anything that's cute. Now I love it for this new generation that they have all these options. But during my time, never. My mom always had to end up making my clothes because there was nothing cute that we could find. So it was something that I was like, I wasn't a fashionable girly because there was nothing for me to be fashionable with, And I grew up with a lot of bullying because I was a bigger girl. So I had been bullied since I was in pre-K. I'm going to start crying with this, but so pre-K all the way to high school, I was bullied. I still remember my senior year, I went up to get my, the senior shirts, basically, right? And I go up to the front of the cafeteria and the guy that literally bullied me from pre-K, he stood up, he's like, oh no, sorry, Jazmin, we don't have anything in size whale. In front of everybody in the cafeteria. And I was like, oh my God, I was so devastated. So it was something that I never thought was going to be possible for me. But then, you grow up, you learn therapy, all the things. And I'm like, why not? So one day I get a call from a friend, and we had talked about it before, an acquaintance, and she's like, hey, I know we've talked about this before. This space is coming open. Do you want to open the boutique that you've been talking about forever? And my husband, he's always been like super supportive. And I tell him, he's like, just go for it. Do it. Do it. And I'm like, oh, babe, but I know nothing about retail. He's like, you're smart. You'll figure it out. So I signed my lease on a Sunday. And then that same week, Dallas Market was happening. And I left to market on that Tuesday, knowing zero about retail.
That's amazing.
But I also have ADHD. So I feel like sometimes it's like, how hard would it be?
100%. Well, I have ADHD, and like, yes, you kind of don't have that you kind of have the how hard could it be gene, but I've realized having ADHD makes you an incredibly good multitasker.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah. So I totally get that.
Yes. And see, and me, I grew up in very humble beginnings. My mom is from Mexico. She came over here when she was 13 years old, and her and my dad met picking bell peppers out on the fields. Like pepper onions. My mom was 13, I think, when my dad was 15, 16. And then they met out on the fields picking, I can't remember if it was bell pepper or onions. They met picking bell peppers or onions. So they got married when they were 18. So we were very poor growing up. I mean, I remember having dirt for floors at one point.
Were you in Mexico? Was this in Texas?
So, this was in Texas. Yeah, I grew up in South Texas, in Roma, Texas, which is literally, I could see Mexico like right across.
Is it closer to El Paso or?
No.
Closer to Antonio.
No, like I'm talking like deep south. Like if you look to the bottom of Texas, like down, where the Rio Grande is on the very, very bottom. El Paso is like, I wish I had a map. I can't, like Laredo, McAllen, Edinburgh, where SpaceX is right now, South Padre Island, that's South Texas. Wow. So I grew up there, and we grew up very poor. I was the first in my family to go to college. And I mean, back then I didn't know a lot of careers existed out of being a nurse, doctor, engineer, attorney, or teacher. Like, I feel like those are the only career choices there were, because we didn't have exposure to all these other creative things outside. And we were so poor. My mom says she remembers I always wanted like a Barbie dream house. Of course, I could never afford it. I ended up building my own Barbie dream house out of boxes and construction paper.
Love it. Creativity. That's the one thing with kids that grow up with, like my mom, we grew up in a privileged area, but I had a single mom, and my dad kind of fought paying child support and wasn't the most supportive. And, kids get very creative, and that's it truly, as hard as it is, I feel like that what we went through and learned, some of the lessons growing up are still things that we carry into our adulthood.
Yeah, because that's when I guess I figured out like how hard could things be? Like, I'll figure it out. I know how to research, and I go into like these deep dive, like laser focused research things. And I do that,
Well, you're a master. So, I mean, just right there already, you're like,
oh, I learned. I've learned like retail world is so, I love it because it keeps you, like, for a person like me with ADHD, there's like it's a good thing and bad thing, because for a person like me that is always like seeking that dopamine rush for the new, retail world does it for you, because you're always trying to, pivot. Okay, this is trending. This is happening. All right, now more people are doing it. Okay, how can we pivot to make it different, to make ourselves stand out? And it's like, it's a constant. And once you think you've got it like solidified, and then in my head, I start getting bored with it. Now it's like, and now another trend. Okay, let's pivot. Now let's go for that. But it's like, the bad part is like, I have to do the bookkeeping. What? Like,
yeah, most of us creatives are not like that part. And that's, that's one of those things that when you can you hire somebody else to do it. Like me, like I do not, you've heard the podcast. I do not have any experience. I just don't have the bandwidth. That's not my strength. My strength is creativity. And I know that. And I mean, I'm certainly not going to be the one to like edit this podcast. So somebody else does it for me. Danielle does all my Canva work. I don't even have the bandwidth to do Canva. Let's put it that way. You have somebody else do it, and you do what you do best. I have to. Okay. So we have to go back to you going to Dallas for the first time. Cause I'm like, right now, my head is spinning. So you have no retail experience. You find out Dallas is having this big market. You show up, you register, you get your badge. And are you at the women's apparel show or are you at the gift show?
I'm at both.
Okay, so you're married.
I think I'm catching the tail end of gift, and the beginning of women, because I was there for a total of 4 days. Luckily, though, I have a friend that had she was going to be presenting at Wessa, one of her brands. So she kind of guided me as far as like, okay, these are the dates. This is where you go, because you walk into Dallas Market and it's like extremely overwhelming. You got like 15 floors that not only go horizontal, but like vertical. And I mean, I don't even know, vertical, horizontal, and like there's little veins. Like it was just out of this world that I could have never, I mean, you see pictures of it. Of course, I did my research. I looked at videos, but until you're there, you don't realize the massive scale of that place.
Yeah.
And how much now there's a corridor that goes this way and there's like a hallway that's like maybe 2 blocks.
And you get lost. And then you're like, wait, where? And if you saw something and you want to try and find it, it's like, I'm like, where am I? Like, what floor was that on?
Yeah. And then you take all the pictures on your phone. But of course, now you have pictures. And after a whole day of being at Dallas, the last thing you want to do is look at pictures on your phone, because I'm just so overstimulated by that point. So what I did know that I wanted with my store was home decor, and I wanted women's. Mind you, I know nothing about budget. I know nothing.
That was my next question.
No, I know nothing. I know nothing as far as, I'm telling you, I went in like if a surgeon had said, you're going to be a surgeon today, now go in there and cut that person up. And you're just there like, what do I do here?
Because I always talk about like when a lot of people and buyers I work with in their retail stores, like one of the biggest challenges that people have if they don't have a budget is they just go in and they love everything. Oh my gosh, I love everything. And then you're like writing orders for everything. And then you start adding things up. Like, I mean,
that's a lot of money.
I mean, I remember the first time I bought for 5, I went from being a buyer for 1 or 2 stores. And then the brand decided they wanted to expand. And all of a sudden I was buying for 5 stores without a budget. Like the money guy was like, just do what you do. You do it well, just do what you do. It's like, you're talking like 5 stores and like you start adding things up at the end of the night. I was like, oh my God, I've already spent this much money. And I was like, okay, well, if he's telling me to spend it, but it's very daunting to go. So how did you approach that? Like, did you buy everything you loved? Did you, were you conservative?
So my friend did tell me, and I did have some sort of guidance. She's like, okay, use the first day to walk around, look at everything, look at all the brands that you want to see. Cause I mean, in that one day in between me signing my lease and, leaving to market on Tuesday, I started like looking brands and like, what's my aesthetic and what kind of like, what direction do I want to take the store? And I found some brands. I'm like, okay, I know for sure I want to go check out like Mud Pie. I want to check out Creative Co-op. I want to go check out
Good taste. So
Bloomingville. So I knew, because I don't even know how to explain my store. It's like modern Mexican.
It looks like, to me, it looks like Anthropologie. And that's the biggest I got to anybody is that your old space because I haven't seen pictures of your new space, but your old space in between the fixtures and the home product and the cross merchandising of apparel and that I'm not going to lie. I'm like completely like my jaw's on the ground that you have never been to retail and then you sign a lease and then one day later and it's somewhere in between this, you're deep diving on your aesthetic. Like I'm not gonna lie. That's like, it's mind blowing. And like, it's a huge kudos to you because your store does feel like Anthropologie.
That's exactly because I've always loved Anthropologie. I could never finish Anthropologie, but
Yeah.
I've always loved Anthropologie and just their aesthetic and like the artistry in the stores. Because up until recently, because of TikTok, I realized that that's an actual job. Like,
Yeah.
I never even knew. And that I knew, like, I remember telling my husband, I want my store to be like an Anthropologie, but in my, with my personality in it. And, so I did go with a budget. Like I told my husband, okay, how much liquid do we have that I can? And that budget did get tweaked a little bit because going to Dallas, I realized like, oh yeah, no, this is not enough. And then I realized like having a 2,200 square foot store, because that's what I signed a lease into. That money goes extremely quick.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Did you know what department, like what, you haven't been to retail, so you haven't even rung up things on a POS system. So did you have some, like when you went out and you had a list of things, you wanted to sell apparel, you knew you wanted to have a plus size, like have plus size, have a focus and like have a presence. When you went and looked at the other like home decor parts, did you have it kind of departmentalized? Like, I know I want candles. I know I want tabletop. I know I want, like,
I kind of looked at how I buy things, like, cause I really have, like, before this, I guess during the 2 years of COVID, what I started doing was like a DIY Instagram, because that's how I was able to cope with my mental health, you know? And we had just bought a new home in 2019. And I, like, again, with my ADHD, I just saw things on HGTV was like a big thing around that time and stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's not knocking a wall ain't that hard. Like, I guess I can try.
Yeah, and we possess the how hard can it be, Gene?
Yeah, and I did that. Like, my husband, he works in the oil field, so he's gone for 2 weeks. So, I mean, when he would come home, there was things that were changed in the house, and he's like, "What happened?" I'm like, "I don't like the wall." Like, I just decided to move it. And
My God,
I remember I was looking at a Restoration Hardware magazine one day. I had just gone into the house, and that was this beautiful cement and wood table that was in the catalog. And I'm like, oh my God, I really want that table for my husband's outdoor kitchen. But then I saw the price tag. I'm like, oh, yeah, no, I am not willing to spend, I think it was like $6,000 on that table. So I'm up to like $3,000, because I also have insomnia some days, especially when I can't just let something go.
yeah.
I'm like, started researching like how to build a table and power tools. Oh, I have to wake up that morning, and he's like, what are, I'm like, oh, like 2 hours. And I was already getting dressed. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, can you take me to Home Depot? And he's like, why? I'm like, I saw this real cool table, and I think I want to build it for you. He's like, babe, but you've never built a table. I'm like, oh,
I love this so much.
I'm like, we'll figure it out. I'm like, I printed out some plans. And we did. I built a wood and cement table. I made a cement form. He helped me pour the concrete, and that was in 2020, I think. It's still in our outdoor space. I wish I have a picture of it in my phone, but
Yes, please pull it up, because those of you who are watching on YouTube can see this, because I'm like, I want to see this.
okay, let me see if I can. Wait, can you see that?
Holy shit, you made that?
I made that, yeah.
Shut up.
No, for real.
The fuck up.
No, I did.
Oh my God.
That was one of the first ever, like,
Everyone listening to this right now needs to fucking go on YouTube and look at this, or go to
Instagram. It's my other Instagram. It's not my store Instagram.
the name of it.
It's Jazz, Jazg Montalvo, Montalvo.
This interview is so fucking amazing. I seriously cannot believe you made that. That blows my mind. Well, now it makes a lot of sense on your store. Like it really, like,
but it gets better. You want to know how it gets better?
yes.
Oh, our house, when we bought it in 2019, it was built in 1983, but it was this really ugly red brick. Around that time, I had seen that Studio McGee had lime washed, and our faux farmhouse, they had lime washed some homes with that Roma Bio lime wash paint. And I was like, that looks really pretty. So I ordered a little quart off Home Depot. My husband was at work. He had been gone. He was going to be gone like 3-4 weeks at work in like West Texas. And one day I'm like, I think I'm going to paint the outside of our house. And I was working at that time. I was like working like 2-3 days on, 4 days off. I painted the entirety of our 3,400 square foot home in like 5 days. I lime washed all of it.
Oh,
so he gets home and he would call me. He's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm painting." And he's like, "Oh, okay." Or like, "How's it coming out?" I'm like, "Oh, it's actually coming out really nice." But I never told him what I was painting. So he gets home and he's like, Are you serious?
oh my God, that is amazing.
He's like, "I cannot believe you painted the entirety of our house." I'm like, "Yeah, I did." And I used then just a masonry brush to paint our entire 3,800 square foot home. So, like this is our house before. Can you see that?
Good. Okay, number one, your house is so cute.
Oh, thank you. That's our house before. And that is our house afterwards.
You need your own TV show, seriously. Like that, I am so utterly.
And I say I painted it with with a little. I mean, can you see that?
Like it is okay. Oh my God, that's insane. I'm like, this has never happened where I've been like, God,
yeah.
Now I'm really understanding, like, I think this is painting a really good picture, no pun intended, of who you are and the tenacity of you and building your brand. I mean, now it really becomes very clear. Like, I love this story so much. Like,
oh, thank you.
God, like, so you're doing all these jobs. You were still a nurse at that point.
Yes. I was still an RN at that point.
Was this COVID at that point?
Yes.
When you were coming out. So just to take everyone, I don't want to spend too much on this, but I do like give everyone an idea of being a nurse in a COVID ward. Like how many hours? Like let people know, understand. Like all of us love and respect nurses, but I don't know any nurses especially that worked in the COVID unit. So what did your day look like? And then to put in perspective, the fact that you are doing these projects at home and you're a mom, taking care of your kids while your husband's traveling
and going to grad school.
Like that is like mind blowing. So what did a typical day for the COVID unit nurses look like?
So I usually get to work like at 6:30, get our assignment, exchange with the nurse that's coming off night shift, and then start taking care of our patients. But at that time, since everything was like every day was some new research or some new something was going to come out that so we never knew what the new protocol of the day was going to be. We didn't know, we only have 20 masks for today. So you're going to have to keep that one mask all day and preserve PPE. We don't have enough PPE. So you have to be back there because we would have to go behind some double doors that were vacuum sealed, like pressure rooms to, so that air wouldn't contaminate the healthy air outside where the nurses and just everybody was. So we would have to gown up in these things head to toe, so hot because now you're trying to work with this huge mask, like a mask on and a bonnet and just covered head to toe in a suit or whatever, having to take care of patients who could barely walk, barely breathe. And at that time, it was just, okay, nurses are the ones doing everything. We didn't have aides. Because they wanted to limit the exposure of staff. So it was like we were having to do the nurse's aide job, laboratory techs jobs, dietary, so taking trays back and forth. Like we had to do all the jobs as nurses. So take care of our patients. And then I remember we would have to come out and just to breathe. We couldn't go to the bathroom while we were back there. We had to basically wait until we could come out. And it was just very mentally daunting. And we'd be there, 12 hours, clock out, sometimes 7:30, 8 o'clock. If there was an emergency, of course, we would have to stay late. But it was more so like, it was mentally draining because it was like, oh, well, now we have 10 more patients downstairs. Because I live in a smaller town. So it's not like we had the numbers of like 300, 400 patients at one time in the ER. But 20 patients for us is a lot. That are waiting for us downstairs when we have a COVID unit full of patients and we still have 20 people waiting to come up. And it was, at that time, it was like, oh, well, this nursing home patient has COVID and they have to go to the hospital because nobody else can take care of them. So not only are we taking care of the nursing home patients that are pretty stable, but we're also taking care of the very critical patients that we have. It was just very mentally draining and exhausting. Sometimes we'd be at the hospital 12, 13, 14 hours a day. And at that time, I only was supposed to be working part-time because my husband was gone away working and I was in grad school. So I'm like, I'm only going to be working 2 days a week. But they needed the help. So sometimes it was 3, 4, 5 days a week.
How did you keep up your studies after that? And how, like, your kids? Because I mean, I saw the video of your little girl. I mean, they were little then. I mean, like,
they were little. I had a lot of help. My mom, my brothers, they had to come out, kind of become part of my bubble, because there was no way that I could have done it being a nurse. And could I have stayed home and been with my kids? Yes. Because luckily my husband, like I said, he has a really good job, but I couldn't stay home knowing that I had something to offer my community.
Wow.
Like the guilt in me would not allow me to stay home knowing that I could help my community. Because my husband's like, why are you doing this? He's like, you don't have to do this. I'm like, I know, but it's like, I feel like the guilt is going to kill me knowing that I can help and I'm just at home.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think back, I'm like, that was selfish of me too, because then I was putting my family at risk, Yeah. So, but it was like an internal battle that I was fighting every day. So then I would come home at the end of the day, exhausted, and I would come in through our garage and my kids would stand at the doorway because coming off our garage, we have a full-size bathroom. So my kids would just stand at the kind of like the entrance of our garage just to tell me, hi, mommy. But they couldn't hug me. They couldn't kiss me, anything, because I had to first decontaminate, strip all my clothes, put in a separate hamper, and run into our shower. I would take like a hour-long shower with like Hippie Cleanse to kind of try and disinfect myself.
Wow.
Then after that, then I could finally go and kiss and hug my kids.
Man.
And so that was 2 years of it. And then I ended up getting COVID. I never would wish that upon anybody. And that was before a vaccine was readily available. So it was just a very mentally draining job because it went from, oh my God, like, what are we going to do today? What are the protocols today? To, oh man, I hope that nobody comes sick enough that we're going to lose somebody. Yeah. And then it was like, okay, we're losing patients, but you can kind of like not justify it, but and not that we were at peace with it, but we're like, okay, they're older. I think you kind of have to, I would guess, you kind of have to put up a bit of a barrier and not get emotionally attached. But I think, like you said, like the day-to-day of that, but I still like the day-to-day of what you're going through and the mental, how tired you were mentally, but physically. And then you're going home and like painting your house. Like that's the part where I went and studying I mean, it's mind blowing what the human will do and can do. It's amazing when you think back. I'm sure you look back now and say, I can't believe I survived that. And it's like, I went there, and if you probably had to go back and think about your day, you're probably like, I really can't, I don't know how I did it. Like, no, all I can attribute all this to is my parents, I guess coming from an immigrant family and kind of living that life, because my dad, we were considered migrant workers our whole lives, because my dad, we would have to come every summer to where we live now, Victoria, Edna, Texas, to work my dad was a truck driver, and he'd have to come in for harvest, like rice, wheat, grain, corn. And we'd be out here with him. Like, I saw how hard my parents worked, that I was like, man, if my parents could send me to college, if they could pull us out of poverty, like I'm complaining about this.
It's amazing. I mean, I say it all. I mean, I know Anthony Bourdain said it when he was alive, is that, the Hispanic culture and the Hispanics that work in restaurants and do the work that not a lot of young white people would do. Mm-hmm. There would be no restaurants. There would be no busboys. There would be you would not have vegetables on your plates. Like the back-breaking work of pulling vegetables. Because we grew up in California, Southern California, and it's like going up to Santa Barbara. You go by all the fields, and being bent over, hunched over all day long in the hot sun. And it's not like you've got shade with you. You have a hat on, but you see all the workers in long sleeves so their arms don't get burned. And my grandmother I'm Mexican, I'm half Mexican, and my grandmother would never speak Spanish at the house because she came from a generation that if you spoke Spanish, that you would be considered a farmer or a migrant worker. And so we never learned Spanish because she would not speak it around us at all, like not even at home. So I kind of missed out on that, but I know some of the reasons, like the long sleeves and so you don't, but it is back-breaking work. And to know that your parents put you through school and college and how hard migrants work, it's like, it is astonishing to me. I'm not going to go down the political road, but it's just astonishing to me because it is the hardest working group of people that I know. And you are a complete tribute to your parents of
oh yeah,
where they've come. Like, is your mom's alive? Is your dad still alive?
Yeah. Yes, they're still very much alive.
They're with you, like within the same, because they help you. Are you guys in the same?
Like 25 minutes of me, and we're a super close family. So after my dad was, like I said, he has a trucking company. And I have two younger brothers. Once my middle brother graduated high school, he has been driving trucks with my dad since he was like 9-10 years old, very young as well. And my parents told him, you need to go to college. We don't want this life for you. And he went to college for like a semester. And then he's like, but I really want to be a truck driver. So ever since my brother kind of joined in the ranks of my parents' company, their business has grown exponentially.
I love that.
I've seen they went from my dad, literally struggling, only having rice and beans to eat, which at the time I was like, cool, I love this. Like, you ain't like, I knew no different. And my mom's like, no, mijita, we ate rice and beans because that's literally all we had to eat. We couldn't afford chicken or beef and I'm like, okay. Like, oh, I didn't even know that. Or my mom telling me
well, it says a lot about your growing up that you didn't know that you were lacking.
No, we did. I didn't know.
That speaks volumes.
Maybe in the little things like, oh, my friend is wearing a Tommy Hilfiger shirt and I'm not, because Tommy Hilfiger, of course, we wore uniforms in school. It was a public school, but we had to wear polo shirts. So okay, yeah, my friend's wearing Tommy Hilfiger shirts and mine are bought at JCPenney. JCPenney was big in the back and back then, maybe in that sense, but never oh my gosh, we're really, really poor. No, I never had that, but that's a tribute to my mom and how well she budgeted and managed our money, because my mom, she is the head of the household, even though she doesn't like to say it, she really is. She is the nucleus of our family. So I guess seeing my parents, how hard they worked and how my dad went from owning one truck to now they own 18 trucks.
It's amazing. I love stories
and they have a whole, they have employees and they have this
American dream.
Yeah, no, my parents, I always tell people, my parents are the literal embodiment of the American dream. And if you tell my dad, he's like, I'm not rich, I have to work for everything I have. I'm like, Daddy, I know that, Dad, but look at what you have. You look at what you have grown, and he doesn't, my parents can't see it because they're like, we've worked hard for all this. This isn't a big deal. I'm like, Daddy, it is. I'm like, Papi, yes, it is a big deal.
Well, there's a lack of ego, and that's when people, whether they come into money or they make a lot of money, that's one of the very ugly traits of money is ego. And look at me, and it's all the bag I carry, the car I drive, the clothes I wear, it speaks volumes about your parents as well. And your father, it's but he has worked for it. And, he has worked his ass off for it, but there's the lack of ego that comes along with that because he did work for it. I mean, it's his.
Yeah.
He built it from the ground up.
Mm-hmm. And we joke with him. We're like, Dad, look at what you've built. Like, you have built generational wealth, which is only something some Mexican families dream of in a first generation. Like, you can expect that from like a second, third generation, but you built it in a first generation to like build us generational wealth that is only going to transcend my brothers and myself and my kids, and just, you know, keep building on top of that. And I mean, although I don't have any part in my parents' business, like, they have helped me. Like, they were like, we'll help you buy that building. Like, yeah, they have bought a 100-acre ranch, which would have, like, even that in of itself, in the area that we live in, buying a 100-acre ranch, I was like, well, it's almost paid off. They had just bought 4 years prior. Like, it's almost paid off, being how, like, we'll use that to put, you know.
That's what blows my mind, is that is not only like the fact that they bought it, but how fast things are paid off. Like that prideful, like that is the important, that is like how that is paid off, that there's not a debt. That is insane to me, because that's definitely not the American way. Like, people are like strung out like debt up to the ceiling, and still buying things, but like, you know, your father goes in and buys this and it's like almost paid off. It's like crazy.
Yeah, a 100-acre ranch almost paid off. And he's like, and we'll use that to, you know, put a down payment towards the building. And could I have said, yes, Dad, do it? But it's like, I don't want to give that kind of stress to my parents. And it wouldn't stress them out, because be like, Nita, don't worry, you don't have the payment, we'll got it. But I'm like, no. I don't want that. Like, you're already helping me. I don't want to take advantage of this. And at first, me quitting nursing really was, like, my parents are like,
I can imagine.
Ay, mija, like, but
you went to
yeah, this is what you always wanted. And I don't know, like, this is what you went to college for. And it was very much like a pride thing, and a like, what are you doing? But then they have seen how happy this makes me. And even though like how stressed it makes me, but then they see like my growth online, and then just like, wow, that's your daughter. Like, wow, that's amazing. And, or they'll be here for like, every time there's an event downtown, my parents will be here, and they'll just see like, wow, this is your daughter's store. It's so beautiful. Because my store now, where the space that I'm in now, is truly a reflection of how I feel inside. Like, I tell people, I think I made a post about this, but it was on my personal Facebook, that I've been going through like mental health struggles, through anxiety and depression, because opening the store and me having to move, there was other challenges that I have faced. Like, I guess I call them headwinds in my business. And anytime there's a new painting that goes up on the wall, because my walls are covered in murals, which, by the way, I didn't know I knew how to paint until 2021. Of course you do. I literally woke up one day and I told myself it all. I woke up one day and I told my husband, I think it was around Frida Kahlo's birthday, which is what my store is named after her. Because if you know her story, you would understand why. I told my husband, I think I want to paint a Frida. And he's like, but you have never painted anything before. I'm like, I mean, we'll figure it out. Like,
excuse me, I painted the whole entire house.
Yeah, I'm like, I know I've never painted a Frida, but like, how hard could it be? That's my family. We have a group text. I'm like, how hard could it be? Like, I'll figure it out. So I went to Hobby Lobby that morning, and he's like, you would get the biggest canvas you could find. I'm like, yeah. And I did. I painted Frida. And I found that painting just gives me like that quietness in my brain that helps me just like work through my emotions. So I always joke with my customers. I'm like, anytime you see there's another painting, that means that Jazmin was going through it. But, they'll come into the store, they're like, are you okay? Because I didn't see that painting on the wall like 2 weeks ago. Is everything okay? I'm like, yeah, I worked through it already.
So okay. So you go, we have to go back to the Dallas story. This is two ADD people having a conversation. I just want to preface that, everybody. But so you go to the show and you are buying things and you realize obviously how much it's going to cost to fill up and how fast it fills up. Did you know what delivery dates were?
No.
So were you taking everything ASAP? I mean, because you obviously had to rework because
I'm really good about asking questions.
Oh, good.
So luckily the vendors had a lot of patience with me. And like I said, my thing kind of broke. My friend helped me a lot. She was the one, she had a menswear brand that she was showing at Westa. It's like a Western brand. So she kind of gave me a rundown in like 30 minutes. Like they started like, make sure to ask about delivery dates. Make sure cause if not, they're going to want to send you everything now.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love my friend.
Like, don't give them a credit card. Tell them that they have to call you before shipment.
Oh my God, your friend is giving the best advice.
No, she did. She said, don't give them your credit card. Tell them that they need to call you for your credit card.
Thank you.
Because then they're just going to send you something that you wanted in fall. They're going to send it to you in spring and they're not going to care. Ask them about shipping and you need, she's like, here, create your UPS account. And she made me create a UPS account because that's what they were going to use for shipping. Because if not, my shipping rates were going to be astronomical. And I'm like, oh my God, so if I didn't have her, I would have just been like,
okay, I'm not your friend. Because that was probably the best. That's some of the advice I give people all the time is one, delivery dates. Because if you don't have a cancellation date on it, a lot of manufacturers, not a lot, every manufacturer will send it to you. If you don't have a start date, it's going to ship ASAP. Even if you don't need it, it's going to ship ASAP. Not giving your credit card at show. I think everyone thinks this is a PSA for everybody listening. I think that everybody thinks when they ask for a credit card, you have to give your card right there. Number one, we all know this from doing the show. 9 times out of 10, by the time you get home, your card's already been compromised, especially if you've gone to the Las Vegas show. So, but that credit card's not even be good anyway. So don't feel bad about saying, please call for a credit card. And you can even say that, trust me, by the time I get back, this card's going to be compromised. So you might as well just call me. But you do not have to give a credit card right then and there. And actually it is much safer to do it when you talk to them over the phone. Yes, you're giving someone a phone call or have them send you a credit card form, but you do not have to give your credit card. It's actually better that you don't give it to them right while you're doing the orders. That's my PSA for the day.
Yeah, because if I wouldn't have known, I would have been like, I guess that's how it's done. And I would have been giving my credit card information, left and right.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate to have had that at that moment, especially since things happened so quickly for me. And it wasn't something like, oh, I want to open a store one day. Let me start researching and all this stuff. I was just like, oh, space available. Oh, let's sign the lease. Oh, market. Let's go.
So now you've done the show. Now you come back. Now your stuff's starting to deliver.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a POS system?
I had Shopify.
Okay. So you had Shopify.
In between all this, I guess let me backtrack a little bit. In between all this and COVID's going on, I'm doing all these things. There, Jazmin goes again with her ADHD, right? And I go into a deep dive and I love wooden signs and I love signs in general. And for me, I'm Hispanic. I've always there's no Spanglish stuff. Now it's becoming more, available or whatever we're seeing. And I'm like, oh, I want to start making some Spanglish signs. And I don't know how, I think it was like an Instagram reel that I saw and it was like a laser. And I'm like, what in the world is that thing? And it was a laser cutter. So I started going to a deep dive and I told my husband, I swear my husband's such a saint.
Yeah, he deserves a medal.
He does deserve a medal. We butt heads a lot, but every crazy idea that I have, he's just like, okay. His favorite song that he always plays for me is T.I., You Can Have Whatever You Like. He says that's like my song.
He's a good man. That's a good man.
He's a very good man. He's a girl dad too. So he's just like, I'm just going to go with the flow here. But I sent him a picture. I'm like, I want this. He's like, okay, order it. I'm like, babe, but it's like $16,000. He's like, do we have it? I'm like, well, yeah. And he's like, that's what's going to make you happy. Then just get it.
Wow.
I'll go. I ordered a $16,000 laser the size of a little car. And I start figuring it out and how to make signs. And I started making keychains. And then I became a friend, an acquaintance of mine at the time was opening a little a store that she was going to have vendors in. And she's like, well, do you want to put your stuff in here? And I'm like, okay. So I guess that was my first dip into kind of some sort of retail, but not really. Because I still didn't know what the hell, I was just bring her my stuff.
Please tell me you're still using this machine.
Yes, I am. Actually, look, I'll show you some stuff I've made, actually. And I made it for my store. Now, more so, I make stuff for my store.
I love it.
So I made this.
Well, that's cool. So it's a 3D.
It cuts wood and it's engraved.
Wow, that's a great. No wonder it's $16,000.
And it cuts like this is acrylic.
Oh my God, that's a great.
But I can cut. So it's like my little, and it's on a stand. It's just over there. I've made some wedding signs. I need to go get one real quick. It's really beautiful, actually.
Okay, I'm just going to say this right now for everybody that's listening to this. I highly suggest that you watch the replay on YouTube, because I think that you will really enjoy seeing this video, not just listen to, but at least you'll be able to kind of see, especially the pictures of this table that she made. Holy shit.
A hairdresser.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah. And it's like,
wow.
Piece of acrylic, and that little like steer head is behind it.
I love that you're still doing this. That's great. So it's not like, it's like, I think a lot of people like, oh, I want to try this, and they do something for a little while, then they get bored, and then they go do something else. The fact that you're still doing it and you're still putting it back into your business, I think is incredible. So now, okay, so now you've got Shopify, you've got your deliveries, you get the store opened. At what point did you start doing TikTok? Like, were you bandwagon in the beginning? Because I followed you. Because I know you from Instagram first.
Yes. TikTok, I kind of started doing it. If you go back, it's more so like just like family, fun, crazy stuff. And then my business started growing a little bit more, and I started hiring some girls, and they're like, oh, can we do some TikToks? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So they did some TikToks, but it's like, even to today, I struggle with what direction I want to take my TikTok. And it's like, I still struggle with it with my store, like my business Instagram, like what direction do I want to, because I do showcase some of my family and some of my products. And then and like, what do they say? Comparison is a thief of joy. Mm-hmm. Right. And I start comparing myself to other boutiques, and I'm like, oh my God, okay, I see their feeds, and like, it's all business. Don't listen, and don't, because the thing that really now, which I think is the people that are the most successful are the most authentic. And especially when you are showing, you showed your daughter taking the orders to the post office, and like that, those are all important parts of business. And the days of those perfectly executed, Instagram pages where everything was all colored out, like everything was like, it was like all about green. And then the next month everything was blue. It was like, and the perfect family photos, the perfect homes, those feeds, those are done now in the world of TikTok. And this is why I think I love TikTok so much. And everyone has issues with it, or there's a group of people that have issues with it. It's not about pretty. It's about authenticity. It's about business. What are you doing? It's about interacting with community. It's about building community. And what I love is that you've done that. And I think you should show it all. Like, I truly think, because that's what your business is. It is. You do your own laser signs. You do the TikTok hats. You have a family. I mean, you need to show it all. And I don't look at what other people are doing. Always look. And this is one thing Fred Siegel taught me. It was like, don't look in the rearview window. Carve your own path. Do you. And that is the beauty of you, is that you are literally carving your own path. And I see a lot of people go live, but when I started seeing you go live and creating on cue, on camera, that was like I said this the other day on Instagram. On Instagram, was it retail does not look the way it did when I had stores. It looks totally different. And part of the beauty of it is that everybody is pivoting, and one day you're going live, the next day you're doing something. And that's honestly, as retailers now, that's what people have to do. And that's the biggest challenge, I think, for retailers that are my generation, is getting out of their own way and being comfortable going live, or what am I going to go live about? And it's like, I mean, I was going live with Instagram as the podcast before it was a podcast, and ask me if I've gone live yet. No. I need to, but I get stuck in like, what the fuck do people want to see me in the middle of a showroom? And I guess that's what I'll do. But
all of us but I'm totally comfortable like on stories. But I mean, if the pandemic, and I said this before, the pandemic taught us anything, is that retail does not look like retail anymore. And retail, the beautiful part about it is like, you can kind of carve your own way. If you have the balls to get out there and do shit live and like order and like be the trendsetter and be the person forging that route, everybody else is going to follow you. And that's what's happening. And it's okay. So this is the hat that you've been doing. Because now I know we're stretching into like an hour. But I almost feel like cutting this off and then doing a part 2 and talking only about TikTok. And like,
okay,
I wonder if we do that, because I truly feel like
we can definitely do that. My husband's home; he has the kids.
Okay, so we're going to end the recording right now because we're going to do this as a 2-part. I've never done this. I've ran 1 2-part, but we only decided to do it after the fact. So this is the story of Frida Bae, your beginnings, your upbringing, your retail space. We're going to cut and we're going to start talking about TikTok. So for those of you listeners, you're going to
have on the quote that I have painted on my wall.
Yes.
Okay. It's a Frida Kahlo quote. And it says, and I'm looking at it because it's up here, it says, I'm the type of woman that if I want the moon, I'll get it down myself.
I love it. And that's absolutely what you're doing. So everybody who's listening to this is the end of the Frida Bae story for retail. Come back and join us. We're going to talk about TikTok next.